Now this, I was starting with some imagery. This was a drawing that a man made in a workshop I was doing in Japan, where I just said, make a drawing of how you image your body. And this is what he drew, okay? Now, 4 hours later, after he had moved, this was his new image. Now, the way you image yourself is the way you respond. So if you image yourself one way, that's going to influence your responses to all life situations. Now he has a new image that's going to change his responses. Now I'm going to take you over a longer period of time, because you must remember this is a language, and like any language, it needs to have time. You need to be able to learn this language. So this was his first image of himself. That's on a sketch pad that's 18 by 24. And he said, you know, I'm very embarrassed to draw this, because when I look within myself to draw an image, I really don't know what to do. This was his second image of himself 6 weeks later. The scale of that drawing is twice the scale of the first one. You'll notice that a little mythology is beginning to plant itself. By mythology, I mean his personal story. And you'll notice that one side of his leg, one leg is one color and the other leg is another color. And his face is looking in two different sides. So you begin to notice that a polarity is setting up. 6 weeks later, this is a life-size drawing, and this is his image of himself. So he has separated those polarities. Now, what goes on to make this kind of change in this short a time? What is the process that goes on? Well, first, I started by asking Ken, as well as all the other students in the class, I said, Ken, draw a picture of how you image your feet. And since we're going to go through a process in which you're going to take the body apart, piece by piece, before we put it back together again, it was very important that he get a pair of feet to stand on, because he's going to begin to lose his familiar orientation. So he said this is how he saw his feet. So he was blindfolded along with his other classmates, and he was sent out into the woods to make his way with just his feet, with no eyes. So here he is. He comes back an hour later, and this is the image that he has of himself. That says groping feet. Now, that you can appreciate that each one of you is so totally unique. There's not another person in the world living today that's like you. There never was and there never will be. Each person's uniqueness is extraordinary. So doing the exact same process, another person came back and drew this. It says foot animal, okay? Another part of the body that we would go to would be the face, because the face masks so much of who we are, so many of our feelings. You know how often you smile when you really want to cry. So we go to the face next. And Ken drew a series of faces. Starting from the right side was his first face. So he danced that face dance, and then he found he had another face to the left, and he danced that face, and that opened the door to still another face on the lower right, and he danced that face. And then finally, on the lower left, he danced this face, and he called it stress. I would have, perhaps you could have framed that in the context of his dark side. Okay, look at the similarity. It's something that you might find in all drama and dance, that moment when you reach that deepest part of your dark side. The pivoting point in healing is when you're able to confront your dark side and come out in another place. So he had found the deepest part of himself. Now I'm going to go very fast because there's so much to cover. He went through his whole body, bit by bit, one part of his body after another, took it completely apart, put it back together again, and danced a transformed person. I'm going to show you a series of such images by a series of people who are all in the same workshop. This is her first self-portrait that she's holding. That's her second one that you see behind her. Her task when she danced her self-portrait was to dance all the symbols until she understood her personal mythology from her own kinesthetic experience. She could write a story about it. This was her third, her transformative self. I want you to understand that none of these participants have any training whatsoever in drawing skills. So what we discovered is that drawing images is a function of the kinesthetic sense. And the kinesthetic sense is nurtured and cultivated by the ability to articulate your images. And that this is a natural process. Because you'll notice in these drawings, everybody has that incredible capacity. You'll notice that the larger body, the collective body, the body of nature herself, becomes integrated with the personal body. Here's another one. It's her first one, which you can hardly see, and her second one. And again, you'll notice that there's a polarity between the right and left side. And this is her third one, where she still is working with her polarities, with her two sides. They're not yet integrated, but she's well along. Again, she's brought in the environment. Here's another one. This is his first one, and that's his second. And that's his third. Okay, now as I say, everybody must dance every image there. You spend a week just dancing your self-portrait. So here's some of the people moving this was their second self-portraits. This was a very important set of drawings that one of the participants drew this one first. And as you'll notice, what do you notice about this drawing as soon as you look at it? Huh? No hands and no feet. It's so obvious, but you know she didn't see it. This is called denial. And and it's the first stage in any kind of creative process, is moving out of denial. She did not see this. 6 weeks later, this is where she was at in her development. Right? Okay, here's a close-up. Now, the thing, what is so absolutely fascinating about your mind and how it functions in relationship to the kinesthetic sense is that In the 3 years that I tried to research and find a code, I really could not find one. The messages are so deeply buried in the individual experience and that individual's life and their life before their life, their before life, their genes. I mean, something that is so beyond any one person being able to say, this is what it means. She had to just keep dancing it and dancing it and dancing it. In one session, she was dancing her relationship to her mother, and this was the drawing she did. And the next day, she broke her foot. There was a message so intense trying to come out, something that was blocking her creativity, and she wasn't getting it, and so she had to break her foot. And when she was in this cast, everybody started paying attention to her and bringing her her food and carrying her up and down the stairs. And her moans and groans turned into laughter as she said, this is the attention and this is the care that I've always wanted from my mother and never got. So she began to do another set of drawings to heal her ankle because she was distraught. She'd come all the way across to come over from Europe to come do this training, and here she was incapacitated. So she wanted to heal fast. So she did a series of drawings, and the first one is to your right, and that's identification. This is where the pain is. This is where I hurt my foot, right there. The confrontation came next, and she said the cast is like a prison, and I'm caught inside this prison on fire, burning, and the earth is breaking under me. And that was her looking at her dark side. And out of that came release. The fire intuitively turned into 3 hands. And the earth began to solidify under her, and the restoration came next, when the fire turned to water, and she said, I feel a little seed growing inside my ankle, and the cast is my protector. So that was her restoration, and now she says, my foot's beginning to heal, and hands and feet unite. That's her integration. And her last self-portrait was how she applied that to her self-portrait and to the totality of her mythology. Isn't that extraordinary? Every time I look at it, I just, the human being has such capacities, such amazing intuitive capacities. These are some of the places that nature takes you, that sense of merging with this larger body. So this was her first drawing on the right, and we did the earth run around a tree. And when she came back, she had discovered, she tapped into another place in herself. This is another tree drawing. This is a woman who did this drawing after she had done movement ritual, which is a series of very releasing and relaxing floor exercises. It's her drawing of herself as a tree. And these are some more images of people in nature. And I'm just going to end with this because working in nature has a way of connecting us very intuitively with the deepest images and the most healing and the most creative images of our being. So here's one. Another. That's seaweed. Thank you.